to do with power selection and everything. This is one of those LXQC03V2s. Is it easier as it adjusts? Don't know. So these little guys, unfortunately, they get in the way of the electronics. In other words, there's no smooth path from positive to positive across here. And they go through regulators and little MOSFET there. And yeah, I guess that's okay. I can't even find information on this. Okay, why aren't we recording? So for a while, I've wanted to make a USB-C tester. I have a digital load here, which I'll be showing you in a second, and I've tried lots of USB-C modules, the little PD triggers, and they all pretty much are crap because they involve messing with the current path from in to out. And what that ends up doing is it ends up putting circuitry and load in the path. So as I would crank the load up, what would happen is the output of the device would be rock solid, but on the load I would see the voltage dropping as the current went up. And that meant that these little guys are actually taking on a load, which they shouldn't be doing. They should just be declaring the voltage that it requires from the source. The source should simply give it to it, and that's it. Well, that doesn't happen. So I've been trying a couple of these chips. One of the ones. That is not a standard voltage. You can because it's variable. So anyway, a couple of resistors are in here, and there's some jumpers, three jumpers. Now the way this works, I took it a bit apart and brought the schematic down into uh, regular regular people language. And just for a second, I'll back off just a little bit on here. And you're not probably going to be able to make anything out of this, but just so you know, USB-C comes in. The good part about this, and I think you can make this out, is that VCC goes directly over to the positive terminals. There is nothing interfering. Now you can put a PMOS or a P-channel MOSFET in here if you so desire, but this is a straight trace on the board. Why? Why would you do that? So yeah, I guess you could use it to drive, but the whole point of this thing in my mind was to tell the source that the load was requesting a certain voltage or a certain maximum current, right? Doesn't that make more sense? So they're not using any of the pull downs on the CCs or anything. So here's our jumpers. 1, 2, 3. I have them set up as little switches on a circuit board here. and they deal with the various resistances. So A, if you have nothing, it's 20. A is, if you have nothing. A is if you have, hello, hello, silly camera. So if you have just A, it's 14K to ground. That equals 15 volts. If you only have B, that's 10K to ground, 12 volts. And as you can see, 9 volts is A and B. It puts 10 and 14 in parallel for 5.83 to ground. A plus B plus C is a short. C is a short to ground, and that gives you 5 volts. That's what the chip is programmed for. And so we, tore down the circuit, see where all the traces went and everything. Very impressive. Ground comes from shield, plus comes from plus, the big terminals, not the little guys for signal. And so life is good. All I did was I took those A, B, and C, and I attached them to switches here, and I'll try to get back in close. I attached them to the switch here. So these are regular old PCB crappy little switches, and I ran Teflon wire up to each of those pads, which of course the camera's deciding to do its own thing. So there are 6 wires coming off of here, 2, 2, and 2, and I just soldered them to some headers just to have. So this is all garbage from other stuff. This is a scrap breadboard, and so our source comes in here, plugs into the USB-C, and the digital load is plugged into, he said, these wires, which come over to the digital load. So for the most part, we're going to be looking at the digital load to see how it responds for different power supplies, because of course they all claim to be just wonderful, don't they? Well, I have one here just for this purpose. This is a new, I think it's just a piece of shit Chinese PD. This is wall charger for all of $7.99, and it's got some rather strange maximums here. First off, it's 20 watts. I'm really surprised they didn't say it was 100. The outputs 5, 9, and 12, right? 5, 9, and 12. 5, 3 amps, that's 15. 9 volts at 2.2, that's 19, almost 20, and 12 volts at 1.6, which would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 19 watts. Doesn't mention 20 volts, doesn't mention anything else but 5, 9, and 12. Camera, hello. There you go. So getting a look at it, there you go. Pretty strange, okay? You can pause and take a look at that. 20 watts max. It just threw me off when I saw a relatively responsible power rating from some piece of shit. So let's, this is of course, the most bizarre made up names, AOOMROA.com. So yeah, somebody was just drinking one night and made up yet another made up company. So, okay, it's kind of weirdly done. Oh, looks almost like a real card. It won't be. So, little instructions. 20 watt max. Okay, so it repeats the power ratings that we talked about earlier. Material is PC. Let me see how broken the English is. All they do is just pay me, I'll do their translation. Just pay me. It's so awful when they throw it into Google Translate. It is only suitable for use in areas with an elevation of 2,000 meters and below. Huh. Wow, the pronouns are right and the verbs are in the right place. you can see a little bit of wonky English. So anyway, let's take a peek. I just threw this together. I just tested it for half a second on another power supply. Figure, hey, let's see what $8 gets us. Okay. So I'll tell you, while we're looking at the digital load, I'll tell you what I've got these switches set to. It'll be pretty obvious when you look at it. So let's unplug this, handy dandy USB-C. I have super short ones somewhere. I think they're in my bag, which is in the car. So let's plug all this jazz in, right? It's super light. There's nothing to it. It's just, your typical switching power supply. Intertech is the company that has their label on here. Okay, I'm not seeing a ton of UL listed on here, but I am seeing something. So there you go. Now you see what I see. If it said Innotech, now that would be a collector's item. All right, let's plug it in. And right away, we got nothing up on the load. So it's definitely plugged in, definitely a good cable. I'm going to turn over to the load. And let's see what's on the slab. So, yeah, I know it's not a perfect angle, but you should be able to see it. Does that help any? Not at all. So this is actually plugged in right now, and all three of the trigger select switches that are on here are off. In other words, it's requesting 20 volts. Now, as the standard goes, we should be getting the lowest that it's going to give us starting at 20. And the problem is, it says 12 volts. Now, it doesn't say it only does 12 volts, but it, 12 volts. So I'm going to, where'd it go? I'm going to use the key that I made after I dissected that little HUSB 238 board, and I'm going to hit number A, which should give us 15. Now it's requesting 15 volts. And nothing, not even a little bit, nothing different. I don't have a bigger zoom for this lens, sorry. Let's do, that's 15 volt. Let's do 12 volt, which is only B. So we open up, select A, we close B. Well, there's our 12. Ain't got much there. 9 volts is A and B. So let's, nice, good stuff. And A, B, and C is 5 volts, so let's just go down to 5 volts. And nothing, not putting out anything. Okay, let's unplug it. Maybe it's shy or something, maybe. Plug it back in. Interesting. So to show you that I'm not crazy, I'm now resetting all 3 of the switches back to 0. In other words, it's requesting 20 volts. And I'll show you that if I widen this out a little, go right there, you'll see that this is our guy under test. Doesn't seem to be doing jack shit. So, just for kicks, I got a cell phone here, just for kicks. Let's pull this guy out and let's see what it does with a cell phone. Charging rapidly, which, as we all know, means something. Charging rapidly. Mm-mm-mm-mm. No telling. So it's recognizing, or at least communicating with the cell phone. Now watch. I'm going to put it back in. It's requesting 20, but it should come down. It isn't. It's not even responding. Hello? But watch what happens when I take this out, and I'm going to plug it into one that I know works. This is a 100-watt charger. So let's go back up. I don't think I can. Yeah, you can't see the digital load unless I zoom in on it. So there's no way for me to show you the the power strip here at the same time. But believe me, I've got a connector right here. So let's plug it in. I don't know what it'll do, but what do you know? So it went back and forth, negotiated current, and stopped at 20, which is kind of what it's supposed to do, right? So let's do the same motion as we did before. Here's A, should bring us down uh, to 14K to ground, or 15 volts. Nuts on. There you go. And I'm only pulling 1/10 of an amp. I was hoping to really run this up on this cheap piece of shit, but it's just not working. Um, let's go down to 9 volts. Look at that. Perfect. And just B is 12, so I shut down A, leave B on. 12. And 5 volts is all of them to ground. All 3 of those little jumpers on this little board. This little board that I'm talking about, it's got some weird meaningless numbers on it. ZYPDH, and the chip is an HUSB 238, no spaces. Looks kind of fuzzy, doesn't it? So as we look, kind of try to get things all in the picture if I can. Yeah, it's hard. So I know you can barely see it over here, but you can see it says 5 volts, right? These are the 3 jumpers that I've been messing with. They're just PCB jumpers that aren't even soldered in. They're just pushed into the breadboard. And of course, the camera's not going to let me show it to you, is it? All right. Come on. Come on. Don't look at those tools. Don't look at that other stuff. Don't focus on that. No, no, act like that's not there. There you go. Now you're getting better. Oh. So, don't look at those. There you go. See the switches? See how I soldered 2 wires to the header row? Don't worry about any of this garbage down here. This is nothing. And if you have one of these HUSB 238 boards, you'll see the 3 jumpers are along here, and there's 6 total wires, right? And I did 2, 2, and 2, and I just twisted them together to keep them straight. This is the whole thing right here. These are like, they can't be more than $3, but boy, are they worth it. This is really a good deal. So there you go. I'll plug it right back in, just unplugging, see? Down to 0, right? Back into the piece of shit, Chinese piece of shit. Nothing, nothing. And the HUSB 238 is a standard. It is not some it does not pass muster. So there you go. If you want something that maybe some phones will trigger to give you just 20 watts, then great. Spend $8 on it. I was just hoping it would be a throwaway that I could really beat to death. I was gonna pull as much current as I can till it's smoked, but that joy has been taken from me. So that's it. Another disappointing, cheap Chinese piece of shit. There you go. My review shall reflect this test, or the results of this test. Till next time.